Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. Today is June 23rd and we've got some breaking news about an intriguing new name that came out just this morning as being on Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's potential vice president list. CBS News is reporting Karen Bass, the five-time representative from California and chair of the influential Congressional Black Caucus, is being vetted by the Biden campaign as a possible running mate. There are always unexpected names no one talks about leading up to these picks, and Biden's search is clearly no exception. Keep in mind, this does not mean the 6 names reported last week as making up Biden's shortlist isn't accurate or that Bass is still under consideration, just that she's being or has been vetted by the campaign. The obvious question for a lot of people is, who is Karen Bass? Bass is a native Californian, and prior to running for public office, she was a physician's assistant and community activist before becoming an instructor at the University of Southern California. Her political career began in the California Assembly, where in 2008 she made history by being elected Speaker of the Assembly, the first African American woman in U.S. history to be elected to such a position. Bass was reportedly one of the recommendations by Representative James Clyburn, the man universally considered responsible for Biden's resurrection in South Carolina during the primaries and his eventual route to the nomination thereafter. She was elected to Congress in 2010 with 86% of the vote and has been re-elected 4 times with no less than 81%. She is a prolific committee member, taking part in over 20 congressional caucuses and committees. Aside from heading up the CBC, she also has been front and center on the House's attempt to write a police reform bill as a member of the House Judiciary Committee, is on a number of committees dealing with mental health, healthcare, autism, LGBTQ issues, and HIV/AIDS. She also co-founded the bipartisan Congressional Caucus on Foster Youth and is co-chair of the Congressional Coalition on Adoption. She is considered one of the more liberal members of the House, is a member of the Progressive Caucus, and voted yes in House impeachment proceedings against President Trump earlier this year. She co-sponsored a Medicare for All bill in the House in 2019, but tempered that support by expressing a belief that an option for people who want to keep their current health insurance should be made available. So what are the pros and cons of choosing her as a running mate? Being a woman of color should put her high on Biden's list. Her pick would be an understanding the moment kind of move for Biden and electrify the African American community in ways Senator Kamala Harris might not. The same with progressives who are suspicious of Harris's time as a prosecutor in San Francisco and Attorney General of California. She would also energize progressives as Elizabeth Warren would, but with the added benefit of doing the same thing with African American voters. While only a member of the House, she has legitimate chops on both the federal and local level of legislation, and has been in multiple leadership positions. Her time on the Foreign Affairs Committee gives her heft on foreign policy, while her position on the Judiciary Committee would give her gravitas on any law enforcement reforms a Biden administration would want to push through Congress. At the same time, her House seat would be an easy keep for Democrats and not endanger their majority in the House. Her list of cons is short, implicitly because of her first con. She's not well known on the national stage outside of political junkies and policy wonks. She has gotten some publicity lately for her work on the police reform bill, but that's about it. At 66 years old, she's not going to satisfy those who want Biden to choose someone younger to project the future of the Democratic Party. Presidential tickets with a member of the House on them usually don't perform well. James Garfield is the only president to run while still a member of the House and win, and the last sitting member of the House to become vice president wasn't even elected. Then Representative Gerald Ford replaced Vice President Spiro Agnew after he resigned. Her one controversy was her decision not to attend President Trump's inauguration after conducting a Twitter poll to make the decision. She is an outspoken supporter of gun control, which will likely torpedo any chance Biden has of taking Texas and may not play well in some swing states like in the Midwest. That said, that could be offset by helping African American turnout in states like Georgia, North Carolina, and Florida. So what are her chances of being picked? On a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate her a 7 right now, with the potential to go much higher. While not well known on the national stage, the political upside to picking her could have huge implications for the campaign. Bass would be a tremendous pick for Biden to help soothe the progressive vote while helping to drive turnout with minorities, specifically African American women. The fact Bass's name has leaked now rather than earlier as a potential running mate feels almost like a trial balloon to gauge the response from those two groups. Kamala Harris still has to be considered the frontrunner at the moment, but his calls for a woman of color impact Warren's chances, and questions about Val Deming's time as police chief, Harris's own law enforcement history, as well as Keisha Lance Bottom's lack of federal experience and policing controversies seem to dim their chances. Bass could rise up Biden's list to challenge Harris and become a serious contender for the slot.